How's it going, YouTube? Thank you for heeding the Twilight's call. Today, we're going to discuss the top 10 cards from Standard that I will not miss in the format. If this appeals to you, please consider subscribing and liking all the good, fun YouTube stuff. And with that said, let's go into the discussion here. These cards are things that have driven me nutty over the last, year and a half since they've been introduced to the formats that they come from. And I will not miss them darkening my door anytime soon. In reverse order of how they were released, we'll begin with the Afr Man Lands. This is kind of cheating, but clumping these all together, these things are so aggravating to play against as a whole. I'm just going to put them in as one entry. Mainlands in general are already hard to kill because they're some of the best removal in the game. Bounce spells and whatnot can't hit lands, or their sorcery speed, and you have to wait till they animate it to actually do anything with it. So while you're waiting around trying to get them to activate it, they're building up their other resources, and eventually they're either going to counter your removal, or they have other threats that doesn't matter anyways, and they dodge mass removal. So with that said, I have to say to these things, get the hell out of here. Next up is another annoyance of mine, Elite Spellbinder, and I will admit I've used this thing to hit Mythic in both Winota and Mono White aggro decks over the last couple of years, but it drives me crazy when it gets used against me, and unfortunately there's going to be a new variant of it coming from the new set, so we're not going to get completely away from it, but at least it's not a permanent effect. You can kill the new creature and get the taxing taking off the card. The thing though that really pushes this thing over the top is other taxation effects like Thalia being printed, so it just makes it kind of miserable to play against. And speaking of miserable, next up is Vanishing Verse. Can I please play my stuff without getting nuked by this thing every single time? It's like without fail, I cannot play a mono black aggro or any other type like that that's a monocolored stuff without this little party pooper coming in and ruining my day. And on Arena, it never fails. The game gives it to them on turn 2 almost every single time. Here we have one of the most overpowered white creatures that came out of the Kaldheim set, Righteous Valkyrie. Now I find this thing fine for Historic and Commander. There's more answers there for it, and it's not that bad. But in Standard, it's just too much to handle sometimes, even especially if they get it in multiples and they start gaining life. I mean, I've seen games where players are 150 plus life, and in Standard, how do you stack up against that? It's just impossible. Also coming from the Kaldheim set is another card that I find impossibly difficult to deal with at times, Blizzard Brawl. Fight spells are fine in Magic, but fight spells that leave the creature alive and invulnerable with no drawbacks attached to it, that's a big screw up in design. And it should have cost more than 1 mana if they were going to actually tack on that indestructible effect. This thing's been a house since people realized what it could do in Green Snow builds, and it's a near blowout if they use it on something like an Old Gross Troll to smash your best blockers and swing with a 5-power indestructible trample right off the bat. And then they oftentimes have mana left over to cast something else to get it onto the board. That's why I said it probably should have cost more mana if you're going to get that no drawback swing after they've already killed one of your creatures. Because then you're left with the option of, okay, I can lose another blocker to mitigate the damage, or I can just take and lose 25% of my life. I will not miss dealing with this thing in Standard. Seems like the hits just keep coming from Kaldheim. Next up, Car Chariot. The cat car, the Cadillac, whatever you want to call this stupid thing. It was just way too good for what it did. At 4 mana, it gets you the car and 2 cats, which then gets you more of any other token under your control, and it's got a big enough body that's hard to kill in combat without losing 2 or 3 creatures trying to get rid of it that way, and it's invulnerable to removal, most of it anyways, until they animate it with the crew. So if you let it swing, you got at least 2 to 3 cats sitting around. So that's 6 power worth of cats, just kind of facing you down, even if you manage to kill this thing. And then it got even worse when Ren and 7 was printed, because then they started animating or copying the tree folk that it made, and it's just a silly thing. So to Essica, I say take your chariot and drive it to the junkyard, because you're not in Standard anymore. Our last Kaldheim pain in the neck, and this is a more recent one, Runeforged Champion. This thing was a garbage rare until Jukai Naturalist was printed in Kamigawa. And then this thing just became absolutely obnoxious to deal with. It combines with the enchantment reduction of the Naturalist to make runes cost 0. So, you combine it and you realize really fast that free magic spells break the game. And if you don't have an instant speed removal spell ready for at least one piece of the combo, you're screwed. You have to hope that you have something to kill the Naturalist, because it's the more synergistic piece with all the rest of the parts of their deck, or they're going to start cantripping off of these runes one after another, and then your only hope is they only get like 1 or 2 runes and they stall out. Otherwise, you're very unlikely going to be coming back from it, and I will not miss seeing this deck as it is right now. Here we probably have the best 2-drop that's been printed probably in the last 5 years of Magic, Luminar Aspirant. I mean, since this thing was first printed, it's been kill on sight. It enables far too many things. You buff up stuff, and it just gets out of control if you can't deal with it. And it's only gotten better as of late because of Thundering Raiju in the Boros build in Standard, which just, put a counter here, put a counter there, and swing, and you get extra damage like it's nothing. And if you're relying only on board sweeps to, deal with your creature rushes and stuff, some sweeps only hit for, 2, and as soon as something gets up to 3 toughness, you're screwed. I, for one, will not miss seeing it land on turn 2 and growing my opponent's horde of creatures. And here we have the Aspirant's running mate for a long time, Skyclave Apparition. Look, I'm fine with creatures that enter the battlefield, exile a creature until it leaves, and then return it to play like a Brutal Cathar, Banisher Priest, those kind of things. But this damn thing eats your lunch and then laughs about it. Forever, exile is harsh. And, having it do that on this card was bad enough. And then it eats, your best creature, and you get nothing back really of consequence. It's like, oh, you took out my 3 casting cost card, and I get a 3/3 that does nothing else back, and it's just like, it makes you want to just scream when you see it. And I can't count the number of times where I've told myself, as long as they don't have an apparition, this is gonna be a great thing on the board, and then they'll just windmill slam it on the board, and you're cussing out the screen at that point. I mean, to be nice about this, screw this card and the person who came up with it. The last card in my list, and this may only be an issue in Arena, but I hate it so much, is Scoot Swarm. Once this thing gets on a roll, it just kills the client, and it is positively not fun to play against. Because if you have the luck of not having a kill spell in your hand once this thing hits 6 lands or just before that, you're going to be unequivocally screwed. I've seen this thing churn out, 2 to 4 to 8 tokens just off of, play a land, I have 2, play a Roiling Regrowth, I have 4, I have 8, because there's 2 more lands coming into play. It's just, it gets wildly out of control because it's exponential in its growth. I think the mistake was allowing it to create clones of itself with all of the same abilities. It's just too much, and a dedicated ramp deck can just force this thing out of control really fast. And all I gotta say is good riddance. So what do you guys think? Was I too harsh? Was I not harsh enough? Did I miss a card that you are glad to see going? I want to know what those are. Put them in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching, and have a great day.